My sister stole my identity, my inheritance, and nearly my husband, but karma had other plans. My name is Sarah, and for as long as I can remember, I've lived in the shadow of my older sister, Jessica. She was always the golden child, the one who could do no wrong in our parents' eyes. Pretty, charming, and effortlessly popular, Jessica was everything I wasn't, or so I was led to believe. I was the quiet, studious one, often overlooked, a stark contrast to her vibrant personality. Our parents, bless their hearts, genuinely believed they were treating us equally, but the subtle favoritism was always there. Jessica's accomplishments were celebrated with fanfare, while mine were met with a polite nod and a quick change of subject. This dynamic, while frustrating, was something I learned to live with. I focused on my studies, excelled in academics, and cultivated a small, close-knit group of friends who valued me for who I was, not for who I was related to. The first major sign that Jessica's sense of entitlement extended beyond parental affection came during our college application process. I had always dreamed of attending a specific, highly competitive university, let's call it Northern Lights University, known for its exceptional marine biology program. I had worked tirelessly throughout high school, maintaining a near-perfect GPA, participating in scientific research, and volunteering at local aquariums. I poured my heart and soul into my application, spending weeks perfecting my essays and preparing for interviews. When the acceptance letter arrived, I was ecstatic. It felt like all my hard work had finally paid off. My parents were proud, of course, but Jessica's reaction was unexpected. She was outwardly congratulatory, but there was a subtle undercurrent of resentment. She had applied to a less demanding state university and had been accepted with a scholarship. I thought nothing of it at the time, dismissing her mood as perhaps jealousy over my achievement. Fast forward a few weeks, and I started receiving emails from Northern Lights University addressed to Jessica. At first, I assumed it was a mix-up, perhaps a clerical error. I forwarded them to Jessica, telling her to check her spam folder or contact the admissions office. But the emails kept coming, containing information about orientation, housing assignments, and even financial aid packages, all under Jessica's name. My heart began to pound with a sickening dread. I confronted Jessica, showing her the emails. Her face went pale, and she stammered, trying to make excuses about how she must have accidentally used my university's name on her applications, or that the university had simply made a mistake. But deep down, I knew something was wrong that I decided to investigate. I called Northern Lights University's admissions office. The conversation that followed sent shivers down my spine. They informed me that Jessica, our last name, had indeed been accepted, but that the initial application had been submitted under my name. They explained that someone had later contacted them, claiming to be Sarah, our last name, and requested a name change on the application, stating she had decided to go by her middle name, Jessica, from now on. The person had even provided what seemed to be a convincing explanation and proof of identity. My mind raced. Jessica had access to all my personal information, my social security number, my birth certificate, everything. She had fabricated a story, impersonated me, and essentially tried to steal my admission to my dream university. The university, seeing the confusion, revoked both my and Jessica's admission, explaining they couldn't untangle the situation and were concerned about the integrity of the application process. My dream was shattered, not by my own failings, but by my sister's deceit. The fallout was catastrophic. My parents were horrified, or at least they claimed to be. Jessica cried, apologized profusely, and swore it was a moment of weakness, a desperate attempt to prove herself. Our parents, ever the peacemakers, urged me to forgive her, to understand that she was under immense pressure. But I couldn't. Not this time. The betrayal was too deep. I ended up attending the state university alongside Jessica, a constant reminder of what she had done. The experience left a bitter taste in my mouth, but I vowed to make the best of it. Years passed. I graduated with honors, landed a good job in environmental conservation, and eventually met the most wonderful man, David. He was kind, intelligent, and saw me, truly saw me, for who I was. Our relationship blossomed, and after 3 years of dating, he proposed. I was over the moon. Planning the wedding was a joyous experience, and I finally felt like I was stepping out of Jessica's shadow and building a life of my own. David knew about the college incident, and while he was appalled, he admired my resilience and my ability to move forward. He was my rock, my confidant, and I love him fiercely. My grandparents, on my mother's side, were incredibly supportive of me. They had always recognized Jessica's tendency for manipulation, even if our parents were often blind to it. My grandmother, in particular, had a special bond with me. She was a strong, independent woman who had built a successful business from the ground up. She admired my drive and often told me I reminded her of herself. Before she passed away, she left me a substantial inheritance, a trust fund of $500,000, with the explicit instruction that it was for my future, for me to use for a down payment on a house, or to start a family, or pursue any passion I desired. She knew I would be responsible with it, unlike Jessica, who had a reputation for being financially irresponsible. The existence of this inheritance was kept secret from Jessica. My grandmother had explicitly told my parents not to tell her, knowing she would try to get her hands on it. My parents, surprisingly, honored this request, perhaps realizing the gravity of Jessica's past actions. The money was a comfort, a safety net, and I planned to use it wisely, perhaps to buy a home with David after we were married. Our wedding day arrived, a beautiful affair filled with love and laughter. Jessica was there, of course, as a bridesmaid. I had reluctantly asked her, feeling obligated to maintain a semblance of family peace. She seemed genuinely happy for me, or at least she put on a good show. The reception was lively, and David and I were enjoying every moment, dancing with our friends and family, celebrating our new life together. Then, the unthinkable happened. During the reception, as I was chatting with some distant relatives, my phone buzzed with a notification. It was from my bank, an alert that a significant withdrawal had been made from my account, the exact amount of my inheritance. My blood ran cold. I immediately checked my online banking statement, and there it was, a wire transfer of $500,000 to an offshore account. Panic set in. Who could have done this? How? I immediately thought of the only other person who knew about the inheritance and had a history of financial recklessness. Jessica. I excused myself from the party, my heart pounding in my chest, and found David. I showed him the transaction, my hands trembling. He was shocked, his face a mask of disbelief. We tried to call the bank, but it was after hours. The feeling of utter helplessness was overwhelming. This was my future, my grandmother's legacy, stolen from me on my wedding day, but we decided to keep it quiet for the rest of the night, not wanting to ruin our special day any further. But the joy had been sucked out of me. The next morning, bright and early, David and I were at the bank. The bank manager, a kind woman named Ms. Evans, listened patiently to our story. When she looked into the transaction, her expression turned grim. The withdrawal had been authorized using my social security number, my bank login details, and a carefully forged signature on a withdrawal form. The IP address used to access my online banking traced back to a computer in our family home. The pieces clicked into place. Jessica. She had stolen my identity again, accessed my inheritance, and wired it away. But why? For what purpose? Ms. Evans advised us to file a police report immediately and assured us she would do everything in her power to try and trace the funds, though she warned it would be difficult with an offshore transfer. The confrontation with Jessica was inevitable. David and I went to my parents' house, where Jessica was still staying. My parents were there, looking bewildered. I, trying to maintain composure, explained what had happened, showing them the bank statement and the police report. Jessica, initially defiant, tried to deny everything, claiming I was making it up, that I was trying to ruin her life. But when David calmly presented the evidence, the IP address, the forged signature, the pattern of her past behavior, her facade crumbled. She broke down, sobbing, confessing to everything. She admitted she had been struggling with mounting debt, fueled by a gambling addiction she had secretly developed. She had overheard my parents discussing my inheritance, piecing together enough information to know about the trust fund. In a moment of desperation, she had accessed my personal documents, forged the signature, and executed the transfer. She had planned to gamble the money, hoping to win big and replace it before I ever noticed. Of course, that hadn't happened. The money was gone, vanished into the abyss of offshore accounts and her gambling debts. My parents were devastated. This was a betrayal of an entirely different magnitude than the college incident. Their golden child had committed a felony, and against her own sister, on her wedding day no less. There was no excusing this. My father, a man who rarely showed strong emotion, was visibly shaken. My mother, usually quick to defend Jessica, was speechless, her face pale with shock. The police investigation began. Jessica was arrested, charged with identity theft, fraud, and grand larceny. It was a humiliating and painful experience for everyone involved. My parents were forced to hire a lawyer for her, draining their savings. The news spread like wildfire through our extended family and community, and the shame was immense. The legal process was long and arduous. Jessica tried every trick in the book, pleading for leniency, claiming she was a victim of addiction, that she was deeply remorseful. But the evidence against her was overwhelming. I had to testify, reliving the betrayal and the pain. David was by my side through it all, his unwavering support a beacon in the darkness. Ultimately, Jessica was sentenced to a term in federal prison, not only for the theft but also for the identity fraud, which carried a separate, heavy penalty. My parents were crushed. Their perfect family image was shattered beyond repair. They visited her regularly, heartbroken by her downfall. I, on the other hand, felt a strange mix of relief and profound sadness. Relief that she was finally facing consequences for her actions, but sadness for the loss of the sister I once had, and for the damage she had inflicted on our family. The $500,000 from my inheritance was gone. The bank tried, the police tried, but the funds were untraceable. It was a hard pill to swallow, the loss of that security, that future. But David and I were determined not to let it define us. We worked even harder, saved diligently, and supported each other through the emotional aftermath. Then, an unexpected turn of events occurred. A few months after Jessica's sentencing, I received a call from a lawyer, a sharp, no-nonsense woman named Ms. Davies. She informed me that she represented a distant relative on my father's side, an elderly great-aunt named Beatrice, whom I had only met a few times at family gatherings. Great-aunt Beatrice had always been a reclusive figure, a spinster who had lived a quiet life, seemingly without much wealth. Ms. Davies explained that Great-aunt Beatrice had passed away peacefully in her sleep. To my astonishment, Ms. Davies then informed me that Great-aunt Beatrice had left her entire estate to me. My jaw dropped. Her entire estate. I had no idea she even had an estate. Ms. Davies clarified that Great-aunt Beatrice had been a shrewd investor, quietly accumulating a significant fortune over her lifetime. She had no children, and her few remaining relatives, including my parents, she had largely deemed unworthy or too entangled in family drama. The reason she had chosen me, Ms. Davies explained, was that she had been following the news of Jessica's crimes. Great-aunt Beatrice, it turned out, was fiercely ethical and had been appalled by Jessica's actions. She had always quietly observed the family dynamics, noticing the favoritism towards Jessica and my own overlooked struggles. My resilience in the face of Jessica's repeated betrayals had deeply impressed her. She had seen my character, my integrity, and my unwavering moral compass. She believed I was the only one in the family who truly deserved her legacy. The inheritance was staggering. It included a beautifully renovated Victorian house in a charming historic district, a substantial investment portfolio, and several valuable antiques. The total value, Ms. Davies estimated, was well over $2 million. I was floored. It felt like a cosmic balancing act, a karmic repayment for all the years of pain and loss. David was equally astonished and incredibly proud. My parents, when they heard the news, were a mixture of emotions. There was genuine happiness for me, but also a palpable sense of regret. They saw, perhaps for the first time, the full extent of their favoritism towards Jessica and how it had blinded them to her true character and to mine. They realized that while they had been focused on trying to fix Jessica, they had overlooked and even implicitly contributed to my suffering. Great-aunt Beatrice's decision was a stark, undeniable judgment on their parenting, a silent rebuke. Jessica, from prison, eventually heard the news. She wrote me a letter, full of rage and self-pity, accusing me of manipulating Great-aunt Beatrice, of always being the sneaky one. She couldn't comprehend that someone would choose me, the overlooked sister, over her, the golden child. She still couldn't see her own responsibility in her downfall, still blamed everyone but herself. I didn't respond. I had closed that chapter of my life. David and I moved into Great-aunt Beatrice's beautiful house. It was a fresh start, a symbol of hope and a testament to the fact that good things can happen even after the darkest of times. We established a foundation in Great-aunt Beatrice's name, dedicated to supporting young women pursuing careers in science, especially those from underprivileged backgrounds. It felt right, a way to honor her legacy and to create something positive out of so much negativity. Our lives are good now. David and I are thriving. We are happy, secure, and surrounded by genuine love and support. The scars of the past remain, a reminder of the trials we faced, but they no longer define us. Jessica is still in prison, serving her time. My parents are trying to mend their relationship with me, slowly, carefully. It's a work in progress, but there's a new honesty between us, a recognition of past mistakes. What I learned through all of this is that karma truly does exist, not always immediately, but eventually. And sometimes, the sweetest revenge isn't about actively seeking retribution, but about living your best life, proving your worth through your actions, and letting the universe deliver its own justice. My sister tried to take everything from me, but in the end, her actions inadvertently led me to a far greater fortune, not just in wealth, but in peace, happiness, and a newfound strength. And that, I believe, is the ultimate triumph.